Live action anime adaptations. The process of taking a perfectly fine anime and making it, well, live action.
Are you serious? This is torture. You're torturing me and everyone else watching. Wait.
A phenomenon that causes many anime fans distress and has led to some terrible creations. A process many people have find impossible to create something even watchable or passable in the eye of a hardcore fan. But rarely, just rarely, there's ones that surprise you and actually manage to impress you. It may actually be, well, good? And today we'll be going over just that as we dissect how Netflix's Cowboy Bebop isn't as bad as you think. Let's talk about it. Before we start, I'm going to be talking about the show as if you've seen this one and the original, so of course there's going to be spoilers in the wazoo. Big PP spoilers in the wazoo. Let's get into it. When watching this show, I went in with zero expectations and honestly thought it was going to be god-awful. As a person who enjoys the original Cowboy Bebop more than every other live-action, animated, real-life story known to man, I wasn't very hopeful for myself and having a good time watching the show. But, surprisingly, I was pleasantly surprised. It had more than just a good time. I had a great time. The show does a lot right in places I didn't expect it to. And as a whole, I think the writers at the very least watched and appreciated the source material. The show as a whole has the original vibe of the animated counterpart, and I feel they captured the essence of Bebop in so many ways. And one of these ways has to be the music, because holy fucking shit, the soundtrack is so spot on. They brought back the original composer for the show, and that was a genius decision. Every track in the show gives me that old nostalgic feeling and had me bopping my head throughout. But a show can't be carried on music alone, being a sorry, I have a little shit in my throat. It requires something else, and unlike said shit, the show has them spot on the characters. The first thing that worried me about the show was the character writing. When first hearing about the cast, I was kinda hesitant. The Spike actor was spot on, but the other two were a bit iffy. And I can say, damn, they fucking impressed me. Spike, Jet, and to a lesser extent Faint were fucking on point. Not fucking on point. Well, maybe there was that one scene with anyway, in my notes about each episode, I constantly kept writing that the interactions in the show were so damn good. The little quips they had toward each other gave me the feel of watching the original. For example, in episode 7 where Faye's mom is introduced, Jet and Spike have two amazing conversations. One is about how much Spike liked mommies. And later in the episode, a lady mistook them as a couple, and of course Spike played it off as if it were true. You get the feeling that the two just get each other throughout, and have been partners for such a long time. And as a whole, that really captures the spirit of the two's bond so well. And with Faye, sometimes her line might be a little cringe to say, but against popular opinion, she felt like, well, Faye. The outfit might have changed, but as a whole, her essence stays virtually the same. She's brash, she's rude, and at the end of the day, she's there for her team. And that's who Faye is at her core. And those aspects are the ones they managed to focus on, and I think that was a good call by the writers. And now for the part that made me utterly surprised, the damn fight scenes, because holy fucking shit. When I say the fights go hard, the fights go hard. Them motherfuckers were fighting. The choreography for this show was so solid. They might have chosen the perfect actor for Spike, and his journey to get to how good he managed to get in such a short amount of time is ridiculous. When I say they hit that good feel the original did, my god. Every single hand to hand, hand to gun, hand to sword, hand to knife, cock to cock fight was just so damn good. The way the fights flow and the camera work is done is super solid. And of course it's not going to look exactly like the animated counterpart, but what they managed to do was superb for live action. Best fight of all time? No. Great fights as a whole? Yes. Hands fucking down. See, these things alone are important in terms of making the show good, but none of those matter unless the story has a solid base and the pacing's on point. And with both of those, I can see where critiques come into play, so let's talk about first the pacing. Pacing of the show is pretty weird, but it's not really terrible. There's way worse pacing in many other shows. The show has episodes that don't completely affect the plot in a large way, but have a small scene or two to continue the overall story. They managed to cover the first 12-ish episodes of the original into 10 episodes, each episode being 40 minutes, which I've heard complaints that they dragged. In episode 1, 2, and 4, I feel like I can see what people mean. They weren't bad per se, but they did overstay their welcome or sidetracked a bit too much. But even so, I feel like even the original had its issues. The original show did have random episodes about characters that didn't really matter in the scheme of things. I'm not saying that these episodes in the live action are on the levels of the one from the anime, and I'm not saying that the ones in the anime were necessarily bad, but I'm not saying the ones in the live action were necessarily bad either. What I'm saying is, as a whole, I understand that they were trying to accomplish something, and even in a slight failure, there were still some solid parts in those episodes, and I feel like if the episodes were shorter, 2 more episodes would have had to been added, and even that would have made the show drag on probably even more than the people are saying now. We're also in a fucking pandemic, so honestly, anything to pass the time is pretty damn good for me. And now on to the story. The story, people mainly are drawing issues with how the story A isn't the same as the original Cowboy Bebop, or B doesn't have the same vibe, and I'm gonna honestly just flat out disagree with point B. Point A is a fucking no-brainer though. If I wanted the same exact story, I'd go watch the fucking original? I have no reason to watch a live action if it's just gonna be the original story, so that criticism, in my opinion, isn't worthwhile and kind of voids the point of making a live action as a whole. When looking at anime live action, I want the spirit of the show to remain intact and the characters to feel like the characters I know. As you can see what will happen with other failures of live action like Death Note and Lord fucking help me, Dragon Ball Evolution. They completely change how the characters function and how they behave to an extremely disgusting level that happens to make me believe they didn't even watch the original show. Whereas with this show, they follow a similar story with just enough changes for me to end up being extremely curious to where they're going to take the story later. And in turn, with the vibes, I felt they had the same character struggles they had in the originals. Maybe not as intense for some, but even anything, Spike's was perfect. His whole goals and motivations remain the same, and the way he shelters his real feelings and how he acts towards all situations is perfect. I personally feel like where they're taking the story with Julia's portrayal and character may even add a fresh take on a classic story, and it leaves up a brand new path for them to take. I've been extremely positive with this show as a whole, but I will say it's not perfect. There are some issues I have with it. One issue that stood out to me was a few awkward dialogue moments. Sometimes the one-liners wouldn't hit, and mainly phased lines, but that could be ignored and was very rare. Another trait that I didn't really enjoy was Vicious's character. They made him less of a silent badass killer and more of a jealous, spoiled man-child. Personally, that wasn't my cup of tea, and the change of character isn't as inventive as it could have been, but I let it slide for the case of they're trying to do something new. And of course, you all fucking know I was going to say it, Ed. You see, Ed's a hard character for them to mimic. Ed's an extremely comical and weird character, and is very radical. You can't really translate that to live action as well without it coming off as cringe. The introduction came off a bit strange and didn't leave me with much hype as I wish it did, but personally I don't know how they can even pull that character off in live action. So I am curious to what they're going to do in part 2 or season 2 after the feedback they received. As a whole though, these issues didn't take away from the overall enjoyment of the show, and I think at the very least these issues brought it down only slightly. As a whole, if I were to give the show a number, I give it a solid 7 out of 10. For what it is, I loved it. I think it has a lot to do still, and I'm excited for where it goes next. I hope to see it succeed, and like Alita, people later down the line enjoy it as well. But if not, I guess I'll just bite my tongue, and I'll be that one weirdo that likes the show. I guess I'm just going to have to carry that weight. But yeah, that's all I got for today, guys. Make sure to leave a like if you guys enjoyed. See you guys in the next time. Peace.
Thomas? We aren't. You can't do anything outside the cause. Not really. That's why we watch the same movies and listen to the same music. I mean, don't get me wrong, the catalog is incredible. We need... I don't know.
Something more?
Yeah. Something more. Bang!